Well, good morning. I'd like to say thank you to Pastor Mark for the opportunity to preach. He asked me about a month or so ago if I would be willing to preach, to share. And I was surprised he asked me, but I said yes, I would be delighted. And I guess part of the thing with Pastor Appreciation Month is you let him get away, let him take some time off. How many of you here would like to be a sheep? Who wants to be a sheep? Raise your hand. All right, we got a couple. All right. So what kind of defensive mechanisms do sheep have? They don't have claws like a cat. They're not going to bite anything that's going to hurt. And they're not big like an elephant or a cow where they can charge after their attacker. The sheep's only defense is to huddle. They're not going to run away. They're just going to huddle. So who wants to be a sheep? All right. Well, I'm going to read from Psalm 23. We're going to read the whole thing, verses 1 through 6. Then I'm going to share things that some 5 insights that I've seen that I found in Psalm 23. We're going to start at verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Before I'll tell you the secret to my sermon. I read a book about a sheep's perspective of Psalm 23. But before I read that book, I always read Psalm 23 and thought it was just a random collection of thoughts that David put together to make a psalm. But I want us to look at it through the eyes of a sheep. And David, as we know, he was a shepherd long before he was king. When Samuel came to Jesse's house to anoint David, David wasn't there. He was out with the sheep. So David knows what it is to be a shepherd. The focus of my message today is that when the Lord is your shepherd, you will be satisfied. Verse 1 starts out, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. Right off the bat, David admits that he needs someone to lead him and guide him. He can't do it on his own. He's saying that the shepherd knows what I need. The shepherd will provide all that I need in his time. He's even admitting he doesn't really know what's best for him. And David knows what it meant to be a shepherd, but now he's put himself as a sheep, and the Lord is his shepherd. The second thing I see in this is that he provides for all my needs. Verse 2 starts out, he makes me lie down in green pastures. Now David, being a shepherd, he knows that sheep don't just lie down. They have requirements that need to be met before they can lie down. The first one is they have to be free from all fear. Second thing is they have to be free from strife and contention among others in the flock. They're not going to lie down if there's bickering or fighting. They have to be free from flies and bugs, and they have to be free from hunger. So there's 4 simple requirements. And when the shepherd shows up, he takes care of 2 of them right away. So as we said, sheep have no defense. But when the shepherd is there, he becomes their defensive weapon. So the shepherd takes care of the fear of the sheep, and then also when the shepherd shows up, the sheep stop bickering and fighting. And we'll get to the other 2 as we go on. The green pastures is a testament to the shepherd. The fact that there were green pastures was a result of hard work, time, and skill in land use by the shepherd. He had to clear rocky land, remove brush, roots, and stumps, and then he would also prepare the soil. That meant seeding and planting special grains and plants, and then also making sure that this pasture was watered to stay green. These green pastures didn't spring up overnight, and they don't stay green unless the shepherd continues to tend the pasture. As we continue verse 2, it says, He leads me by quiet waters. When you get thirsty, you want to drink. When sheep get thirsty, they want to drink. When we go walking or hiking, I'll take a bottle of water or a canteen. Well, I've never seen a sheep that was carrying a bottle of water. But what a sheep will do is they'll run out, they'll leave, and they'll try and find some water, and they'll settle for a brown, dirty puddle. The shepherd knows this, so he's got to lead them to good water. Because he knows if the sheep just drinks out of the brown, dirty water, they're going to get sick, they're going to get bugs, and not going to be healthy. So it's the shepherd that's going to lead us to that good, clean water. The third thing I see is that he helps me when I can't help myself. Verse 3 says, He restores my soul. And what does this mean for a sheep? The sheep have short legs and a big body. Sometimes they manage to roll over onto the back and they can't get up. It's fairly common if they're pregnant or if they have a lot of extra wool and they've got some dirt or mud caked on one side, so they're already walking kind of sideways because they got extra weight on the one side. And then they hit a rut and then poof, over they go. There's two things that are watching for a downcast sheep. We got the shepherd and we've got the predators. Because the predators, once that sheep is upside down, the sheep can't get up. So the predators know that they can have lamb chops if that shepherd doesn't come around. The shepherd knows if he doesn't get there in time, that sheep can die. The gas will build up in their stomach and it'll kill them. So the shepherd's got to get there as soon as he can. And once the shepherd gets there, he can then flip the sheep over, stand it up, and help it on its way. And I think of myself in this, and that sometimes it's our sinful nature that gets the better of us. We're carrying some extra baggage or some mud or junk, and it gets us down. And then the shepherd comes along, Jesus comes along, and he picks us up. He stands us up, and then he says, "Hey, you got a little mud on your side there. Let me pull out my shears and take it off. Let me take care of that thing for you so that you can carry on." Continuing in verse 3, it says, "He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake." The sheep are creatures of habit. They'll walk on the same path, eat the same patch of grass, until that field or pasture is ruined and rutted. If the shepherd doesn't lead the sheep or the herd to new areas frequently, the pasture will become desolate and the sheep will become infected with parasites and bugs. We as people tend to be the same way. We're creatures of habit. And this shepherd is not leading his sheep because the sheep are so great. He's doing it because his name is on the line. The shepherd's reputation is what he's taken care of. And if this shepherd is leading us as sheep, then we must be following. The fourth thing I see is that the shepherd leads me into closeness with him. Verse 4 says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Now wait a minute, how did we get here? We're walking along and all of a sudden we're in this shadow of death. Or some translations say valley of the dark, dark shadow. But who's leading us? The shepherd. So even though we're in a valley that we can't see out of it, we know who's with us. Interesting fact about sheep is that they can see real well in front of them and their peripheral, on their sides. They can't really see above them. So think about this. When they're in this dark valley, they can't really see above them. I think of it this way, that the shadow of death is just that. It's a shadow. No matter how terrible it looks, it's just a shadow. the shadow of a knife has never cut me, and the shadow of death can't kill you. We've got to keep in mind we're passing through this valley with the shepherd. We're not alone. He's with us. Verse 4 continued, says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I don't know too many people that have been comforted by a rod. But this rod was a weapon used for defending the flock, and it was also used for correcting the sheep. If a sheep is going astray, they're going too far away, the shepherd's going to take his rod and he's going to throw it. Say, hey, where are you going? Kind of scare the sheep, say, come back here. I got better stuff over here. Or if there's a predator coming by, then the shepherd's going to take his rod and throw it at the predator, scare him away, or he's going to make a bunch of noise to keep his sheep safe. The staff was used for guiding the sheep. It acted as an extension of the shepherd's arm to guide the sheep. So if they're walking along a narrow path and where the sheep might fall off the edge or something, the shepherd can reach out his staff and it acts as an extension of his arm so that the sheep, as he's walking, says, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it. This is really narrow. This is really tight. And then on his side, the sheep will feel that staff. Say, okay, the shepherd's right next to me. He's right beside me. I can get through this. I can get through this narrow pass here. Even though the shepherd might be 3 or 4 feet behind him, he's still reaching out his staff, so he's right there. Or if a sheep got stuck in a bush, if they're reaching real hard to get one last green leaf and then they find themselves stuck and they can't pull themselves out, then the shepherd's going to use his staff and pull the sheep out and save him. The 5th thing I see is that you show me how much you love me. Verse 5 says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Now going with the idea of just a collection of thoughts, my NIV study Bible said this meal was a covenant meal between kings. It would show one king making an alliance with another. So it said that the shepherd king would be protecting those that are subject to him, those that are eating with him. It's like, okay, that fits, that makes sense. But what about a sheep? How does this fit with a sheep? Well, in shepherd talk, the elevated plateau that has the best grazing land is called the tableland. The sheep will eat here all summer, as it's the best grazing land available. It's the greenest grass around. Before the sheep gets there, the shepherd has already been there to inspect the area. He's been removing poisonous plants, preparing watering holes so that the sheep can have clean water to drink and keep the grass green. It's on this tableland that the predators are also watching. They're hanging around the edges waiting for a sheep to go too far, maybe go off the edge or slip off. But the shepherd has been here before. He's keeping an eye on his sheep. He knows the predators. He knows their tricks. So he's always going to be watching his sheep. He's always going to be on the lookout for predators. And verse 5 continues, says, you anoint my head with oil. Going back to the kings having a meal together, it was the customary treatment of a guest to have oil poured on their head by the host. But what about a sheep? What does this mean to a sheep? Remember we talked about the 4 requirements for a sheep. It had to be free from fear, free from fighting in the flock, free from flies, and full of food, satisfied. Well, this is where the free from flies comes in. In order to keep a sheep free from flies, the shepherd would anoint their head with oil. And he couldn't do this, he couldn't just start flinging oil everywhere. He had to go one sheep at a time and pour oil on their head. And be rubbing it in their eyes, in their face, on their head, and their nose, rubbing it in. And over time, that oil would dry up. So then the shepherd would have to do it again, and do it again, and do it again. all summer long. If the shepherd doesn't do this, there's one particular fly called the nose fly that it'll lay its eggs on the sheep's nose, and then the larvae will go inside the nasal cavity and torment the sheep all summer. So then that sheep isn't being productive. It's not eating its green grass, and it's just being aggravated all day. How many times is it in our lives that it's the little things that bother us the most? In the big picture, it's some little thing that we can't shake it, we can't get rid of it. And that's when we need to go to our shepherd, say, help me, I can't do this. I can't stand it, I've got problems, I need you to help me. And it's the good shepherd, it's the Lord that comes to us and says, here, let me give you what I've got. Let me rub some oil on you, let me give you of my Holy Spirit that you can be free from these things that are bothering you. The last part of verse 5 says, my cup overflows. Now, this wasn't the waiter at the table pouring a glass of water and not paying attention. This was David's response after he's spent time with this shepherd. And he's saying, wow, this is more than I expected. This is the end of the summer. When the fall's arrived, they've just spent a year with this shepherd. They're healthy, they're fat. He's looking at himself saying, wow, look at me. Put on 50 pounds this summer. Man, this shepherd is great. The last verse of Psalm 23 says, surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David's just spent a year as a sheep with the shepherd, and it's been great. And his response is that I want to stay with this shepherd. I don't care where he's going. I'm going to follow him. I'm going to be wherever he's at. When the Lord is your shepherd, you will be satisfied. He provides for your needs. He helps you when you can't help yourself. He leads you into closeness with him. He shows you how much he loves you. I never knew before preparing this how much a shepherd does for his sheep. I hope that you leave here today having a better understanding of how helpless we really are and how good God is to his own. The sheep have it good. So who wants to be a sheep? All right, there's a few more hands. We're going to sing one last song. If you're here today, you find yourself saying that you want to know that shepherd, you want to become a sheep in his flock, you want to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, come on up front. I'd be happy to pray with you. David will be up here with me. If there's something else in your life going on you need prayer for, come on up. We'd love to pray with you.